ביאור משנה ח', explanation for משנה ח'. משנתנו דנה בבירור אוכל ביום טוב. Our Mishnah is going to come to teach us about how to separate food on Shabbat. The separation of food on Shabbat. הבורר קטניות ביום טוב. The one who separates קטניות, all kinds of legumes, I think it's in English, on Yom Tov. So the modern people over here, young people would not know what I'm talking about, but you do, because you remember your mother used to do it. Your mother used to buy rice, for example, or whatever she used to go from the market. It wasn't like today. You would have to go and you have to separate it, because you have stones over there, you have some woods over there, you had some stuff over there, right? All kinds of stuff. Not like it comes today. Today nobody does it. In the old times, everybody used to do that. You remember that? So the question is, the produce came into the house. Now you're going to start separating, right? On Yom Tov. So what's the problem? You're allowed to, because you're going to cook it. Not exactly. Think about what you need. What are you allowed to touch on Yom Tov?
What you don't allow to touch.
What are you allowed to touch in Yom Tov?
Food.
The food. So would you be allowed to take the beds to touch the bed stuff out of the food? In other words, borer is not a problem. You're allowed to borer on Yom Tov.
You can.
You're allowed to. But what are you allowed to borer? The food.
Food.
What does it mean borer the food? Take the food out of the bed stuff. Don't take the bad stuff out of the food.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Take the bad and take the good.
But what does it mean? Think about it. It's so much work.
Opposite.
Yeah, it's so much work. Because usually you've got like 20 bad stuffs in 5,000 good stuff. So it's easier to take the bad stuff. Yom Tov over here, it comes and tells you you're not allowed to do that. Because if you want to do, you're allowed to work with the food. You're not allowed to work with the non-food. What are you doing? So it says on Yom Tov, yeah, you have to do it in a thing that doesn't make sense.
It does.
No, it doesn't make sense to work this way.
Oh.
Yeah, but you have to do it because of Yom Tov.
But logically it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you take the good. You don't take the bad out.
It makes sense logically. It doesn't make sense to the housewife. Why am I working so hard? Instead of taking 20 out of 5,000, I have to take 5,000 out of 20. It's, what do you do? How does it make sense? Yeah. So הבורר קטניות ביום טוב לצורך אכילת יום טוב. For necessity of eating יום טוב. בית שמאי אומרים בורר אוכל מתוך הפסולת. So בית שמאי says this is what you have to do. You cannot take the bad stuff. You have to take the food part out of the bad part. This is how you do it. The house of Shammai says.
While you eat.
No, what you eat. So you have rice. You want to cook it.
בורר אוכל.
Yeah, בורר את האוכל.
Oh.
not the פסולת. יש את האוכל ואת הפסולת. Yeah? Yeah.
And I know it's the same thing.
What do you mean?
If I take rice and I put it in something, okay, and then out of all this, I take the good one out. You
Yeah.
leave the bad. Same thing. Or take the bad, it's more work a little bit.
What do you mean a little bit? You're talking the difference between taking 20 things out of 5,000 or 5,000 things out of 20.
כן, אבל זה אתה עושה ככה, אתה...
Yeah. Yeah, maybe in some things, but in something it's going to be more difficult. Yeah, in something it's going to be more difficult. The woman would never do it in a regular way. She would take the bad stuff out of the good. Yeah. Okay. So Beit Shammai says, בורר אוכל מתוך הפסולת. He has to take the food out of the bad stuff. ואוכל מיד את מה שהוא בורר. And he eats to, in other words, this is another problem, because think what she's going to do. In a regular day, she's not going, if she wants to cook a cup of rice, right? And she got a bag of rice, yeah? And the bag just came from the store. So she's not going to pour a little bit of rice and then separate. She's going to do the whole bag. Over here, they tell you, no. You don't do the whole bag. Do exactly the amount that you think you're going to need to eat. Don't start because on a normal way, she might as well, she said, if I'm already doing it, I might as well do the whole bag. He says, you can't do the whole bag. Just do the amount that it's going to be eaten. That's what בית שמאי says. שהוא מניח את הפסולת, and you have to leave the bad stuff behind. Why? Because he says, you're allowed to separate on Yom Tov, but you have to do it, not the usual way. שאין לברור ביום טוב אלא בשינוי. That you can separate on Yom Tov because it's אוכל נפש, but when you separate on Yom Tov, you have to do it in an unusual manner. ובית הלל אומרים, בית הלל says to בית שמאי, בורר כדרכו. You're allowed to separate כדרכו. Here's another example. That a lot of people, if you think about it, now you become confused a little bit. I'll give you an example. Obviously, Beit Shammai is what?
Beit Shammai
Is stringent, right?
stringent.
Yeah, and Beit Hillel is lenient. Yeah? So, Beit Hillel tells Beit Shammai, you're stringent. It says, what are you doing? It says, you're the opposite of stringent. What is a harder work? To separate good from the bad or bad from the good?
Bad from the good.
So you're doing more work on Yom Tov. So what are you doing? You're not protecting Yom Tov, you're going against Yom Tov. So this is called stringency. Stringency means to protect Yom Tov.
To do less work.
To do less work. You're doing more work. So hey, so what's going on over here? Who's more stringent? You notice how you can look at it both ways? So again, you have two things over here. You have borer, that's Beit Shammai is stringent on the borer. He's lenient on the Yom Tov. Beit Hillel is stringent on the Yom Tov, is lenient on the borer. But you cannot say, look how interesting it is. Exactly who's more lenient, who's more stringent? It's hard to say now. You know this, okay? ובית הלל אומרים, בורר כדרכו. בית הלל says, no, you do it the right way. פסולך מתוך אוכל. I'm not going to make you start working on Yom Tov for half an hour, which is not necessary. So he says, you're allowed to borer it the usual way. בחיקו, בקנון. בחיקו means in his, I don't know. Over here on the legs, they used to do it. However they used to do it, I'm not quite sure. Yeah, whatever they did it. Bekanon, or bekanon uninsal, you're allowed even to do it with a basket. You know, there's a basket, there's small holes in the basket. You're allowed to do it with ubetamchui, or betamchui, hayno bekara gdola. You're allowed to do it with a big bowl, however they used to do it. Aval lo betavla. What he doesn't allow you, he still says, yeah, you should still have it a little bit different. In other words, do it with a little shinui. You don't have to go as shinui to take the good from the bad. Yeah, not that much because it creates more work. But don't do it the usual way. Usually you put it on your counter. Don't do it on your counter. Do it on your lap. Do it in a bowl. Do it something inside. Do it in a little shinui. Just find a little shinui to do. אסור לעבור על השולחן ולא בנפה ולא בקברה. And don't use a sieve also. Because again, you're doing it the regular way, so don't use a sieve. Don't use those things. שהבורר בכלים אלו נראה כאילו כבורר לצורך מחר. Because if you start doing it the regular way, it looks like you're making, preparing it for the whole week, not just for one meal. בגמרא אמרו, in the Gemara this says, שלא התירו בית הלל לברור ביום טוב פסולת מתוך אוכל. So it says, when did the house of Hillel permitted to take the bad out of the good? אלא כשהאוכל מרובה על הפסולת, when you've got more good than bad. אבל אם הפסולת מרובה על האוכל, but if it's the opposite, you have more bad stuff than food stuff, אף בית הלל מודים שנוטל את האוכל מניח את הפסולת. Even בית הלל says, in other words, בית הלל says, do the least work. That's why that's the image.
They are talking about work.
Yeah, do the least work, that's what he's saying, yeah. ואפילו האוכל מרובה בשיעורו על הפסורת. And even if the food is more in a measurement than the bad stuff, אלא שתורך ברירת הפסולת מרובה על תורך ברירת האוכל. But it goes to take you more time to separate the bad from the good than separate the good from the bad. We don't care. In other words, do the least amount of work. That's the idea. כגון שהפסולת דקה יותר, מודים בית הלל שבורר את האוכל כדי למעט בתורך. In other words, בית הלל are worried about your work. Don't start working on Yom Tov. רבן גמליאל אומר, רבן גמליאל says, אף מדיח. He says, no, you're even allowed to separate. He's very lenient. He says, you're even allowed to use tools to separate. What do you mean tool? Today we don't almost do it, but if you remember the old times, if you have like grains, and they've got the clipper on them, the shells on them, so you put water on them, the shells go to the top, and you just take them off. Oh, and you take it off. The same idea maybe, yeah. I don't do it, so I never saw it done, but yeah. אף בדיח נותן מים על הקטניות שבכלי, he puts water on the grains that in a vessel, והפסולת צפה למעלה, and the bad stuff floats to the top. ושולה, and then you kick off the bad stuff with your hand. ואין הלכה כרבן גמליאל, but we are not so lenient as רבן גמליאל, we don't do that in Yom Tov.